What's up, my fantasy footballers? It's your boy Richie K back at it again with another video for the love of fantasy football. Today, I'm going to provide you a video with the basics of fantasy football. If you're a rookie out there and it's your first time ever doing fantasy football, this video is for you. I'm going to do just the basics of fantasy football, doing pre-draft, through the draft, and even after draft. First off, I just want to thank you guys very much for supporting me and watching my videos. I really do appreciate it. I know it's not the best and most exciting content, but it is something that I enjoy doing, and I do hope that if you are a rookie, you enjoy it too. The first thing that you want to do is come up with a good team name, something that's original, but something that also makes sense, okay? You can use Google. I use Google a lot to help make a name generator, but try to be as original as possible. The next thing you want to focus on is making sure you know your time zone that you are in and what time the draft will be at in your time zone. You don't want to be stuck on auto draft because that's going to affect your team. It's going to affect your lineup. It's going to affect your starters. It's going to affect everything that you can think of. And it's just not going to be fun for you, especially if you're a rookie. The next thing I want to talk about is scoring settings. Now, this is usually standard and PPR. Standard is going to be just standard scoring. So it's going to be 1 point for every 10 yards a running back or receiver gets, 1 point for every 25 yards a quarterback throws, 6 points per touchdown for a receiver, running back, and tight end, and 4 points for a quarterback. These are all very standard point settings, even in PPR league, but that's why it's called standard scoring. In PPR, which stands for points per reception, you get points per reception. If you get a player in the draft like Christian McCaffrey, who gets like 10 catches a game, that's going to boost your score overall, which will give you that win at the end of the day. Also, pre-draft, you want to look at extra scoring settings. This is something that the commissioner would have to add in. So if Christian McCaffrey scores a 45-yard receiving touchdown, he might get an extra point because it was 40 plus yards gained for the touchdown. So you always want to make sure that you are looking at those extra scoring settings so you're able to know how many more points your players can actually get. Now let's go into pre-draft. Things that I want to talk about are strength of schedule, cheat sheets, a reliable connection, and draft strategies. The strength of schedule for each team is not that important when drafting players, but it is good to know because players like Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, players on the Cardinals have an easier strength of schedule. So this means that the opposing defenses aren't as good, which means more points for you. Another thing is cheat sheets. I use the ESPN Top 300 PPR cheat sheet. Now, I know it's PPR, but I also use it for most of my standard leagues too. Now, this is a great tool to have, especially in the later rounds when you really don't know what players are left. That way you can start to strategize and get the players you do want to get. So say it's rounds 10, 11, 12, whatever in those later rounds, and you're trying to get backup running backs and receivers that you really aren't quite familiar with, using this cheat sheet can really help you with that because it provides a ranking of all the players based on the likes of how Matthew Berry and all those other ESPN guys. Next thing to talk about is a reliable internet connection. This is extremely important because if you get disconnected from your draft, it may take a very long time for you to actually reconnect. And then if you get disconnected, you might get auto drafted a specific player, and it might not be the player that you really want. So make sure you have a reliable internet connection. Next thing is have a draft strategy. Now this includes 0 running back, 0 receiver, or best available option or player when your draft pick comes around. 0 running back is basically just that. You're not taking any running backs until the 4th or even 5th round. You're drafting the best available receivers when your pick is up. Okay, so this would be like Michael Thomas in the 1st, Keenan Allen in the 2nd, and then Amari Cooper in the 3rd, and then probably Travis Kelce or whoever, Zach Ertz in the 4th. You're not taking running backs at all until the later round. This is good, especially in PPR leagues, because you are going to get a lot of targets from those players and a lot of catches, which means more points for you. This also means that people who don't have as many good receivers will also want to try to trade with you for those receivers, which means you can actually bargain for some running backs that you might need as well. 0 receiver is just the opposite. You are not going to take any of the top receivers when your pick is up. You're going to take the top running backs when your pick is up. Okay, so this would be taking Ezekiel Elliott in the 1st, Kenyon Drake in the 2nd, probably Aaron Jones in the 3rd, Austin Eckler in the 4th, and so on and so forth. Again, this is a great strategy as well because you are taking the best of the best running backs. However, you won't have any receivers to go off of until the later rounds. But there are a lot of great receivers in the later rounds that you can pick up, especially for PPR leagues. So always have that cheat sheet ready and always be thinking ahead. The last one is best available player. When it's your time to draft a player, that's what you're doing. You're taking the best available player that comes up. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're going to take the best available player and not think twice about it. This is good because you're going to get the best available player when your time is up. But it's not going to be good because you're not really thinking ahead. So now let's get into your draft. You have your strength of schedules ready. You have your cheat sheets ready and right next to you. You've got your reliable internet connection and you have your draft strategy. Now, implementing that draft strategy and all the other things that goes into it is extremely hard. So what you can do is just make it easy on yourself. If you're going 0 running back or 0 receiver or even best available player, just take the best available player at the position you're going for. So if you're going for 0 running back and your pick number 8, if Joe Mixon is right there, take Joe Mixon. Make it easy on yourself. That way, when you have your cheat sheet, you can just cross off his name so that you have him, or highlight it, or whatever you want to do, and not think about it until the next round. When talking about drafting, for the love of fantasy football, please do not take quarterbacks early. And I mean first through the 4th, even 5th, 6th rounds early. This is a horrible mistake because you're losing out on some of the best receivers or running backs or even tight ends in the draft that you could be possibly adding to your team. Just wait until the later rounds for a quarterback. You can take Matt Stafford. You can take Dak Prescott. You can take even Ben Roethlisberger in the later round. Even Cam Newton, who's probably going to be going undrafted in some leagues. He's going to have a solid season. Just wait on quarterbacks until the later rounds. Also waiting on defenses and kickers. I've seen in the past few years, people are going to draft New England Patriots defense early. And I'm talking like 10th round early when the draft has 18 rounds total. This is stupid as well because you're losing out on some of the better players that could help on your team. What you could do and what you need to do, especially if you're a rookie, is just wait until the very last 2 rounds of the draft to select your kicker and select your defense. If you don't like the kicker you picked or you don't like the defense you picked, just pick up another one during the week. What you can do is do a matchup based lineup for your defense and kickers. So if your defense is going against New Orleans Saints and some other team is going against the Jets offense, just pick up the team that's going against the Jets offense and then plug them into your starting lineup and don't even worry about it. And the same goes with kickers. Do not worry about kickers until the later rounds or even picking up during the week. Yes, it is nice to not worry about having your kickers or defenses each week, but it's really easy to just pick up one off of the waiver wire and plug them in. Just don't do it. Now, I did say don't take your quarterbacks early. However, if it's a quarterback like Lamar Jackson or even Pat Mahomes and it's in the later rounds of like 4 or 5, then I do suggest maybe picking them up because they are going to get you a lot of points and you're really not losing out on a player to add to your team if you're adding a player like Lamar Jackson because he does run the ball a lot and does get those rushing touchdowns. During the draft, you really have to be quick on your feet. So if there's a player that you're really eyeing, say Austin Eckler for whatever reason, and it's your pick in 2 picks, but someone drafts him 2 picks before you gotta be quick on your feet and think about another player that you want to pick up. So always stay ahead of the game. Last couple things I want to talk about is the post-draft. This is talking about waiver wire pickups and trades. The waiver wire is picking up undrafted players throughout the week. This is an important tool to utilize during the week, especially if there are some players that have been very consistent in scoring a lot of points over the past few weeks and your other players really aren't producing for you. So all you really have to do is put in a claim for that player, select the player that you want to get rid of, and then in a couple days you should have that player. However, there are a couple of things that you have to know about the waiver wire. In some leagues, there is a waiver wire priority. So this is priority based on how well you're doing throughout the season. In one of my leagues, the commissioner has set the waiver wire priority to nothing. So as soon as Tuesday morning hits at 6 o'clock in the morning, if there's a player you want, you better be the first one to wake up at 6 o'clock and get that player, or else you're going to be SOL. Now we're going to talk about trading. Trading is huge in NFL fantasy football, especially when you want to try to get into playoffs. With trading, you have to have a strategy going in. What I like to utilize is doing a 2-for-1. I'm going to give you 2 of my players for only 1 of yours. Sometimes I can be greedy and give away some of my lesser productive players for an opponent's better player. Sometimes this will bite me in the butt because then opponents won't try to trade me or bargain with me. So I really have to pick and choose my own battles. And last thing I want to talk about is playoffs. I know the season hasn't begun yet, but you always want to try to look ahead. So just be wary when playoffs start for your league. Usually it's weeks 14 through 16 of the NFL season. This is a crucial point in the NFL season because teams are either going to be really bad or really good or still in the mix. The teams that are either really bad or really good are going to use their main players less and less because they don't want them to get hurt for the upcoming season or the season afterwards. Especially if a team is doing really good and they've already secured a playoff spot, they really won't be using their major players a whole lot and actually start to decreasing their workload, which means the backup running backs or receivers are going to be getting the majority of the touches and the targets and obviously the points. Which brings me to a point that I should have talked about during the draft is handcuffing. Handcuffing is taking the backup running backs to your starters. So if you take Todd Gurley early in the draft, you want to think about taking Idle Smith or whoever else the backup running back is for the Falcons later in the draft, because the Falcons might not utilize Todd Gurley as much, especially if they are in the playoffs. So drafting Idle Smith will actually help you in the long run, especially if you've made the playoffs. That way you can just plug him into the starting lineup and take Todd Gurley out of it. All right, my fantasy footballers, I'm pretty sure that's all the points I wanted to talk about. If you have anything that you're confused on still, please leave a comment down below in the comment section and I'll be sure to answer them in my next video. But thank you again so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. Please like, comment, subscribe, a whole 9 yards to this video, to my channel. It really means a lot to me. I greatly appreciate your support and hope that you continue supporting me in making my videos for this channel. Thank you again, and may your drafts be prosperous.